Podsmashers of the internet, and welcome to another episode of
80-Bit Podsmash,
where gaming goes to grab a beer. We are your hosts, Penguin and Termite, and tonight we have a week tink. That was a week
tink, yes. 80-Bit Podsmash, for those of you just joining us on this adventure, is a weekly podcast where we talk about video games and how they intersect with pop culture, art, politics, and things that you care about.
And I want to talk about the beer.
Okay.
So we say where gaming goes to grab a beer because if you guys have ever decided to meet up with a friend to have a more serious conversation or to have some fun conversation but intentional, you would go get a beer with them and you would have some nice conversation at the bar, what have you. Well,
yeah,
this is
more
where
of a metaphor.
This is where video games go to do that.
Yeah.
So if Mega Man wants to have a good conversation with Mario, he would get beers.
Kind of. Or like the general broader idea of gaming itself. Going and grabbing a beer with some other
We just described our personalities.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
That's cool.
That's pretty neat.
What are we drinking tonight?
We are drinking Chaos Mountain Brewing's Scotch Ale. Scotch Ale.
Squatch Ale.
It's called Squatch Ale, and it's a Scotch Ale.
And it's a Scotch Ale, yeah. Squatch Ale,
This
Scotch
big
Ale.
multi-Scotch Ale presents a wealth of complex flavors. Not too dark, with a little bit of initial sweetness, it finishes dry. This beer will put hair on your chest like our buddy Squatch. Maybe all over. That's awkward.
I feel hairier already.
I don't. This is a very sweet beer.
It's good. I like it. I've got a sweet tooth, so you know me. I can dig it.
Yeah, it's good. I like it. So what's up?
Oh, not much. It's been a pretty... you haven't been here for a week,
Yeah,
so it's been like a while, even just since we've interacted. And I feel like a lot of like really cool pop culture things have happened since then. Like I started playing God of War, and I actually finished it as of today.
Wait for the Let's Playing section.
I know. But like there's that, and then like Infinity War, which you haven't seen yet.
Not yet.
Just so many things that I've been really excited to talk about, and I've had people to talk to about
you down,
them, but
because I haven't seen or played Jack.
So it's just one of those. So it's like it's that thing where it's like it's kind of. I saw someone describe it as being the first of your friends to turn 21 and you have no one to go drink with. It's kind of like
it's the antithesis to FOMO.
Yeah, it's you're the one not FOMOing.
Yeah.
It's the fear of not missing out. So FOMO.
Funmo.
Funmo.
That could be a segment. Funmo.
Funmo. And we talk about all the things that we're not missing out on. I don't know. Yeah. So that's what's going on.
Yeah.
Today. Or at this time, so.
My family and I went to Rehoboth Beach, Delaware for a week. It's where I ran my marathon, which was the best run of my life.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Everyone give him a congratulations. Raise your glasses.
Cheers
and applaud. So you should be clapping in the car while you're driving now. Take your hands off the wheel and start clapping,
everyone.
Listeners. Yeah.
The marathon of my life. It was the best one ever. I felt amazing the whole way through. The training and the hard work and the weight loss and cutting back on beer despite this podcast worked. So,
great.
Yes, lots of effort. Running was a cuss word in my family.
We are very happy. Wait, what?
Oh. Yeah, like dimensioning it was like anger inducing and
wow.
Yeah, it was a lot of sacrifice, toil and pain, but it was worth it. It was
good.
Awesome. Shout out to Gordon who listens, friend of the show, who runs with me frequently and always pushes us. We push each other.
Yeah, so. I ain't pushing.
He pushes you too, you just don't know it.
And nobody. Yes, well we myself Termite.
You're Termite?
I'm not Termite.
When did that happen?
It was Freaky Friday over here. Penguin and our listeners, our pod smashers, I would speak for all of them and say we are proud of you.
Thank you.
Cool.
I might have 2 beers tonight instead of just one.
Whoa.
I'm getting crazy.
Wow.
Crazy.
That's great.
As I continue celebrating.
Great.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, shall we move on to the next segment of our podcast, which is...
Doing this podcast is our favorite thing. Doing this podcast is our favorite thing.
You know, it's really funny. Every time I think about favorite things while not actually doing the podcast, the actual thing that comes to my head is the song from The Sound of Music.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Which we can't sing here because of copyright, but, you know, it's just like, I'll be like working on something benign and start thinking about, the podcast is on Monday and I've got to think about a favorite thing, and then the first thing that pops in my head is, raindrops on roses and whiskers on kittens. bright copper kettles and warm woolen mittens.
I don't have a clue what you're talking about.
It's the lyrics.
I don't know any of Sound of Music.
But it's not great.
We did Redbox Greatest Showman. Finally saw that.
Ooh,
That's
what'd you think?
It was pretty cool.
Great,
Yeah.
awesome. That's not your favorite thing, though, is it?
No.
Okay, well, let's let our listeners know this segment is where we just kind of catch you up on the thing we're digging this week. And hence, it's our favorite thing. So it could be something from pop culture, it could be some food, it could be an activity. So, yes, what's your favorite thing this week?
Beach fries. And the reason why I use that word is because it's usually around a beach or a summer thing. There's a couple of brands that I'm familiar with. One of them is Boardwalk Fries, like at King's Dominion.
Okay.
And the other one is in Rehoboth, Thrashers.
Okay.
And there's probably a bunch of different names for them, but they're like fresh cut potato fries. And you cover them in vinegar.
I'll take any kind of
and
fries.
Old Bay, and they're so good.
Old Bay.
Yeah.
Old Bay on potatoes is surprisingly good. Like, there's a sandwich shop that opened up here in town that has...
Four Melts?
Yeah,
Yeah.
And they've got Old Bay tater tots. Oh, I was, like, shocked. I was so pleased. I did not expect them to be as good as they were.
We should record a podcast there.
On a beach? Or
Ooh, that'd be fun.
That would be fun.
Except for the ocean deafening our guests.
We could talk about our favorite beach games.
Hey, those are things. I still get yelled at by everybody because I want to play video games during my time off work.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. If we go on a beach trip together, I'm like serious. We'll play video games.
Yeah,
that's the only time we're gonna get some good, solid couch co-op.
Ooh, we should get Divinity Original Sin.
Oh, that'd be fun. Yeah,
and start it. Create characters and go through a little bit.
Well, our laptops, that'd be good.
No, anyways. PlayStation couch co-op. What's wrong with you, son?
Original Divinity.
The sequel's coming out in August.
Yeah, I got
the sequel's coming in 2018 in August.
Great, awesome.
Whatever one you want. Let's do it.
Whatever one you want.
Don't be too excited. What's your favorite thing, Penguin?
My favorite thing is the aforementioned Marvel Avengers Infinity War. I saw it twice in the span of 2 hours. I saw it the first time.
2 hours? You saw it twice in 2 hours?
No, I'm sorry. I saw it twice in 12 hours.
Dang.
Within 12 hours of each other. So I saw it first with a friend on Friday night because he graciously offered to pay for full price for my ticket when I was poo-pooing going because I didn't want to play full price because I wanted to use Movie Pass. And I was like, there's no way we're going to get in on opening night, blah, 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 blah. He's like, no, it's cool. I already bought your ticket. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So we went on a mandate and to go see Avengers my first time. So I was up till like 1 a.m. on Friday seeing that. And then I had already made plans to see it with my wife at 10 a.m. on Saturday. So we woke up. I basically woke up low on sleep, drank coffee, got a shower, and went to Avengers again for the second time.
Wow.
Fortunately, it was really good, so I enjoyed watching it twice.
I mean, that's like see it, go home, sleep, wake up, go see it again.
That was exactly what it was.
Crazy.
It was crazy. It was the only time I've seen, movies within a couple days. Like I've seen a movie twice within a couple days of each other. I've never seen it that like concurrently before. It was great, but it was really good. Like you haven't seen it yet, so I will with. And for any of our listeners who haven't seen it yet, we'll be respectful and not give spoilers. But it was just, it has some problems. It's a big undertaking, but it's both the size of it is both its biggest strength and its weakness. Like it's like, okay, it's so big they had to do so much, and yet it's so big there's no way they could have screwed it up. Like they've built such a strong foundation with all 19 or whatever of their movies that it's just like boom. But like they took some risks, and boy oh boy, like I
can't wait.
I'm ready for Avengers 4. So.
I have plans to see it tomorrow with my wife in the afternoon, so
feel free to squee as much as you want. Maybe we can do a little bonus review if you want.
I would love it. We need to do that with another thing that we're about to talk about too.
Yeah.
Lots of bonus content, guys. It's coming at you.
Bonus content for free for you.
For the same price this episode costs.
Yep.
Nothing.
So, since you want to talk about it, let's do a segment that we sometimes squeeze in there when we have something to talk about with it, and that is, what are you playing?
We're doing this before DLC this time?
Yeah, we always do it before DLC.
Do we really?
Yes.
I'm dumb.
Yeah.
So
you literally had the same thing the last episode. Like,
sorry guys, the audience just have to deal with it. I have a terrible memory. I said this like 8 times tonight.
Yeah.
So I am currently playing what you just finished, and that is God of War.
Yes.
What happened? Termite never plays modern games. He's always stuck in his retro world and trying to catch up.
I don't think that's true, and I don't think our listeners believe that.
Dude, I haven't played anything from 2018 except for A Way Out. And that was like, I planned that.
Right,
it's
but you
cheap
played
kind of
plenty
side
of the
game
2017 games. Like, you played...
Now, I'm working on them.
You played them during the time. You played Horizon the year it came out. You played Breath of the Wild the year it came out. You played ARMS. Like, you played
Mario Odyssey.
plenty. Yeah, exactly. You played plenty of the modern games. No one believes you when you say that you don't play modern games.
But I didn't get to Persona 5 yet.
Sure,
I haven't finished or even
But that's just because
hardly
there's
touched
a lot of
Nier
good
Automata.
games. That's more of a problem. I've probably touched about as many games from the last 2 years as you have. Yeah.
You did finish like 5 in 2 weeks.
Yeah, but a lot of those were backlog games you would consider retro, so.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's be fair. But anyways, talk about God of War. Tell them. The
story with God of War is I didn't want to pre-order it. I didn't want to buy it at full price. I was going to wait. It's a single-player experience. It sucks being not a part of the conversation. And all the reviews came out. It was highly rated like crazy, which I expected it to be good.
Yeah.
Like, I knew it was going to be good, but not the best
not 10
rated.
Out of 10,
10 out of 10.
Game of the Year contender.
Yeah. And on Metacritic, it is the highest rated PlayStation 4 exclusive across the board.
That's crazy.
So it blew out Horizon Zero Dawn, which was in contention for Game of the Year last year.
Yeah. Wow.
Beaten only by the best game ever made, arguably, by Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was kind of enticing. And then, of course, I watched some reviews that were all spoiler-free and stuff, and I was kind of into it. Well, then one of my biggest influencers, Penguin Man over here, sends me a message and says, you have to stop your backlog and pick this game up now. And I was like, okay, I have a free night on vacation. My wife is in grad school, so she had this project big deadline due in the middle of the week and needed to buckle down and do that. So I said, well, I have a whole free night, and I'm not going to go out by myself in a beach town. That's weird. So I'm just going to sit in the condo anyway. Might as well. I was going to Redbox it. And you said, don't worry about it. That's $4 that could go towards the game. It's so good, you're going to want to buy it. So just go get it. And I did. So I broke down, I went and bought it. There's a lot of lead up.
Yeah.
The game is phenomenal.
It's so good. And I don't think it's better than Breath of the Wild.
Oh, no.
But it does for God of War what Breath of the Wild did for Zelda.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it too, even further, if you go even further back, and we had an episode, last week's episode, where we talked about the major innovations and the jumps. To be fair, a lot of those games that came out in the N64 era did the same thing for their franchises. So Super Mario 64 did for Mario the same thing. And that is, and Ocarina of Time did it for Zelda. And that is, they brought it into, they took what works, the identity of the game, and they kept that intact, but then they brought it into what is more modern for video games now. They changed the format in such a way that makes sense. So fixed camera angles, action, hack and slash action games don't work anymore. They don't do well. So putting that camera behind over the shoulder and allowing dynamic camera movement is a boon for that game. I still think linear storytelling and linear games are fine. If they stuck with the linear model, that's great. It would have been done just fine if you had just played through the campaign. Yet they opened it up and added explorative elements to the game that just
there's a map with waypoints on
really
it,
fun.
side quests,
fast travel system you haven't gotten yet, but there's you just there's all this side content, these side quests that Horizon Zero Dawn, they don't feel so overwhelming. You're not it's not like The Witcher where it's just so much. You look at your map and you just get stressed out. How am I going to do all this stuff? No, it's not that at all. You sort of stumble across things as you go, and sometimes you stumble across something really interesting and epic, and it's this really involved thing that was way more involved than you thought it was going to be.
And then the thing that drives Termite nuts is you stumble across something you can't open yet, and you're like, dang it, I have to backtrack, because you want to be a completionist and do it as you go. You can't. The only thing I would argue against your claim about the advancement in technology that was going from the to Nintendo 64 era is that this game could exist on the PS3 if you just turn the graphics down.
Yeah, that's fair.
So the generation from 3 to 4 in the PlayStation console, Xbox 360 to Xbox One, these games that all exist on PS4 now that are blowing our minds are just indicative of a new culture, not necessarily new innovations in the technology.
Right. And that's fine. But what I mean is that they're bringing the franchise into a more contemporary approach to what people want out of it. So they didn't just try to remake God of War 3. They didn't just do the same thing that they've been doing. They made a lot of high risk changes that pay off and are very, very good while still maintaining the core identity of the franchise. I also love how it kind of feels like The Last of Us. Like your relationship with your son is very important in the same way that Joel's relationship with his surrogate daughter is important. And yet at the same time, you don't have to worry about like escort questing. It's like not an escort mission. Escort quest
at all.
Like they can...
Atreus is fully automated. He just does what he does. You can command him a little bit, but that's it. And it's cool because you only command him in ways that benefit you. Like, you don't have to do anything with him. He automatically jumps on your back when you climb a wall. He automatically follows you everywhere you go. So all of the annoying things about escort quests are removed.
Yep, it's great. So, I mean, we could talk all
we
day
will. We're going to have
it.
a whole little, like, 15, 20-minute episode bonus content with God of War.
We'll just
at some point,
go through our thoughts.
It's going to take me, like, 8 years to finish it. So, whenever I get to a certain point...
It's surprisingly long. I did not think it was going to take me as long as
that was another selling point, too. It's like, this game's going to last a while. It's not as quick as, like, Uncharted 4 was.
Right.
Yeah.
So cool. That's what we're playing. Let's really quickly hit up our DLC. Downloadable content, or also known as DLC. It's a little mini discussion we like to have before we get into our main discussion. Usually a little bit more lighthearted and fun than our main discussion. And so today we're going to be talking our main discussion about... We're calling it the dark side of gaming. So we'll get into more about what that means. But for DLC today, I wanted to talk about the dark side. And we're going to talk about, just really quick, we're going to list off our favorite video game villains.
Ooh, we're going to list them? We have more than one?
Well, we're just going to shout.
All right.
Shout out.
I was thinking of one.
Yeah, so that's one. One is fine. That's fine.
I'm going to pick GLaDOS from Portal.
Nice.
Why? She is an AI, a robot, which means she's very logical, and everything is extremely intentional. She follows her programming and her code. So you are brought through an experiment completely designed by this AI to exploit you and to consume you and then mock you while you're doing it.
Yeah.
In like a funny, lighthearted, auto-tuned voice.
Right, yeah. So she makes it... She's a comic relief while also being the primary antagonist of the game. Yeah.
And if you ever had a friend or someone that treated you like she did, well, I guess, because it's a machine, but a female voice,
right.
You would not be friends with that person.
Right.
Like, that would just be the most aggravating, horrible... And that's what makes a good villain. They're very, very, like, to your core, like, frustrating.
Yeah,
But, of course, they added the whole, like, comedy, the comedic relief,
right.
the satire,
so she's a little bit more,
and, like, mocking you. And
a little bit more than one-dimensional. Yeah. No, I like that as well. I'm going to go, and probably no surprise because it's one of my favorite games, but I really did, like, try to think and come up with other ones, but really I kept coming back to Majora's Mask, and... Not necessarily Skull Kid, but the mask itself is such a, like... And partially because I've been really into H.P. Lovecraft recently, and, like, Cthulhu mythos and all that stuff, and these, like, super powerful divine... I guess whatever the opposite of divine is. Like, these entities that are so, like so unfathomable that, like...
Demonic?
Just seeing them, but they're not even really demonic. They're, like, beyond demons. And they're so unfathomable
Satanic?
that just seeing them drives you insane. And that's what I feel like the mask is. I feel like just being in the presence of the mask drives, in the case of Skull Kid, drives Skull Kid insane, but it also has an effect on the fairy tale.
Yeah.
So, like, and it just, like...
The fairy, named tail.
Named tail, yes. Not fairy tale, yeah. And that's what's really cool, too, is that, like, this super evil entity then kind of merges with Skull Kid, who's this sort of mischievous... but also compelling character that has multiple dimensions. Just wants, he wants his friends, and, he's suffering through loss and all this stuff. He just wants to be accepted. And then the mask comes in and twists that. I think it's just this terrifying portrait in a game that's, you wouldn't think on the surface is a particularly deep game.
Right.
So
this is just another Zelda game. It's pumped out by Nintendo.
That's the other thing I love about it. It's not Ganondorf. It's Ganondorf has nothing to do with it. Yep. This is an entirely evil entity all to its own. It has nothing to do with the rest of the franchise.
It never came back again.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's why I think it's a great addition to the Zelda mythology. And will be my favorite villain for now. But I do want to honorably mention Handsome Jack because you pulled him up in an article, and I just love Handsome Jack. It's funny while also you're like, this is a bad dude. Yeah. And like getting to explore his backstory in the pre-sequel I thought was great because you get to kind of see him, his fall, his fall from grace, if you will. Yeah, exactly. So good stuff. So that is our favorite villains, and that wraps up DLC for the day. Wow. Cool.
Oh, that was the sound it makes when Sonic gets a bubble.
That's
awesome.
I did wasn't what I was thinking when I made the sound. Cool. Yeah, so I'll introduce our topic today. We're calling it the dark side of gaming. What we mean is what can be, and we're not saying what are, like what's absolutely going to be, but what can be the kind of negative consequences of gaming lifestyle. Mm-hmm. So, when video games kind of go bad, and, again, you guys know us, so we want to kind of up front kind of disclaimer say we're not going to come here and bash video games and say that they're like, that would be antithetical to what we are trying to do in our podcast.
Right.
We're not going to sit here and say like violent video games are responsible for mass shootings, because that's just objectively not true.
In fact, all of the things we're going to talk about are more responsible, or the responsibility lies on the person.
Right, exactly.
The gamer, not the video games themselves.
Exactly. So we do think that, and so, it's sort of an all things in moderation, but we would, I don't know. I think that, discussing this this podcast and what we're trying to do, our goals with this podcast, I think we'd be fools not to talk about, like, how can these things be a bad influence in our lives?
Yep.
And again, we're not sitting here trying to say that there need to be sweeping changes. We are more interested in talking about what do we as individuals need to pay attention to.
Yeah, what do we need to be aware of?
Yeah, it's kind of the thing.
Sensitive to.
Right. It's kind of the same thing as, like, it's the same thing as smoking. Like, with any kind of thing that can be harmful to you, we would never say you need to stop smoking. What we would say is you need to be careful about how much you smoke, or we would want you to be careful about how much you drink. We would never say like, oh, the alcohol industry needs to stop, like, right, and the alcohol industry needs to take measures. Like, no, you are responsible for your actions first and foremost. Mm-hmm. So if you think that if you can find a way to personally mitigate the effects that we're going to talk about, that's great.
Yep.
But, we still want to talk about them. We still want to, open up the conversation, especially because the dialogue right now in our country is like video games are coming under scrutiny, and we want to say
again.
Yeah, exactly. We want to challenge the ways in which, the politicians are wrong, but also be honest and say, well, but there are problems in this culture. There are problems in this industry that we need to be honest and have a conversation about.
Yep.
So
it would be ignorant of us to deny that these things exist.
Exactly. And it's a good opportunity for us to kind of be open and honest about our own, like, how ways in which video games have negatively influenced and impacted us as people as well. So cool. I hope that you guys enjoyed this conversation. I hope that we do it justice. I really would have loved to interview a psychologist or something regarding these things who have studied it. So if you know anybody who's a psychologist who has studied this, or if you are one yourself, like, contact us, let us know. We would love to talk, revisit this with someone who is an actual professional.
That'd be fantastic.
In the field. But in the meantime, we're going to do our best as lay people to people, average Joes just trying to figure out and talk our way through it. So cool. So yes, kind of big picture. What are we talking about today?
I want to lay out, we have 3 kind of areas of conversation we're going to walk through. The first one is video game addiction.
Okay.
The second one is toxic behavior, or known as toxicity, in the gaming culture. And third, establishing a false sense of accomplishment.
Yes. We think those are the kind of 3 big areas in which video games truly have an impact on a person's psychology.
Those are the topics. Again, not pointing at video games as the cause of, but they do show themselves in gamers.
Right. Yeah. So I think that, I think where I'd like to start is kind of, let's first sort of take down this notion of video games causing violent behavior, because that's what the conversation is sort of around right now. And, the president has said, like, and as a result of the recent school shootings, the president has publicly said that, like, violent video games are clearly what's causing the violence in our culture. And, like, that's just patently not true. Like, we're going to dig up some statistics, I think I'd like to put in our footnotes, like, just showing just all the ways in which that's not true. But I think you did dig some up, right? Like,
Trump invited video game industry people to the White House to have a discussion about it. And the New York Times responded with some articles. One of them is the one we will link to, that quoted a statistic done that of all of the what do you call them?
Shootings?
Perpetrator? Yeah, the people who the bad person.
Yeah, the perpetrator. It's the perpetrator's fault.
Yeah, the perpetrator of the shootings, of them, 12% of them played violent video games.
Like, had even played them,
linked to them.
Which isn't, like, I mean, that's still a number, but it's comparatively, like, that's 88% of
them
shooters, of all the shooters, even played video games, like,
right.
much less, like, were influenced by them. I think the conversation really came up as a result of Columbine, because it was revealed that the Columbine shooters played, I don't remember what game it was, Doom, maybe, something like that. And that's where the conversation really started.
And it's coming up again because Mortal Kombat was caught in the middle of a huge controversy when it came out in the 90s.
Yeah, I mean, I was reading stuff on BioShock Infinite because I was going on a BioShock kick, and so I was like researching some what people thought, and like that was when a conversation came up around that, like, well, this game doesn't have to be this violent. And it's like, sure, but the creators still artistically chose to do that. I think that, like, I would never say that I think that video games cause violent behavior, but I would say that, like, I do think that people who already have violent tendencies might be attracted to video games, and it might, like, there's some effect of, like, oh, it may, you know, it doesn't cause violent behavior, but it definitely, like, someone who already has, like, psychopathic tendencies in that regard and wants to act out violently might be attracted to them, and then also then that kind of, they might kind of feed off each other, but it's such a small, tiny percentage of people.
At least with what we've recorded and are, like, bubbled up through the statistics, because not everything's captured.
Exactly. So it's not like those people would have found violent outlets on their own without video games existing. You know what I mean? Like, the people who are already going to commit violence are going to commit violence. And there's always been games out there.
There's a war on rock and roll, a war on comic books, a war on video. Like, there's always a scapegoat that someone throws up. It's like, this is what's causing our youth.
Because they don't want to admit it's bad parenting. Almost always is what it is. Right. Like, the parents don't want to admit that, no, we actually screwed up our kids. Yeah. Because it comes God down forbid to, like, we be honest.
Having relationships with your kids and knowing what they're playing and being involved in their lives and what's in their mind and what's in their interests and those things. That will feed into our second subject of our conversation, toxicity, because you had some ideas about how so we'll get there.
We'll definitely get there, but we definitely want to start off
that was
big
the preface.
With the thing. That was the preface, sort of like, what do we think? I do want to sort of make a dichotomy as to, like, what isn't the dark side of gaming, and what isn't the dark side of gaming is that narrative that all of these violent video games are desensitizing our children and raising a generation of killers. And so that's like, let's get that out of the way and knock it out. What I do think is a huge pitfall and a huge danger with gaming is our first discussion, which that is
video game addiction.
Yeah, it's a thing.
It's such a thing that when I went to do research on it, I just Googled video game addiction, and the first thing that came up was WebMD. Like, WebMD is a massive a massive website where you can go look at every medicine and, like, diagnosable disease that's common to man. Like, if you have a cold and you want to know how to feel better, you can just Google it, and WebMD is the first thing that comes up. It's so common that was the first thing that came up.
Right,
like, I was baffled when I saw that. I was like, WebMD has an article about video game addiction?
Yeah, and then there's another one. Your next one is the one about the World Health Organization.
Yeah, so the World Health Organization just recognized gaming disorder as an actual disease.
Yeah, and an actual mental health issue.
Right, a mental health issue. And that means that governing bodies, the government, the CDC, I don't even know all of the organizations, now recognize this as a diagnosable thing. It's like, it's in the medical field now. Doctors are going to be aware of it, and they can properly diagnose treatments for it. Yep. And it's actually a thing. Yep. Like, it's not, oh, this kid just exhibits addictive behavior. No, he's actually got a gaming disorder. Addiction, and there are specific measures with which how to treat such things.
Yeah, exactly.
So I thought, I mean, that's the whole reason we started this podcast, is because we wanted to talk about, one of the reasons, if you go back to episode 0, you'll hear about it, but is that gaming is becoming more prevalent in our culture. You can walk into Target and see Mario underwear, like, or, and I don't mean to call it, that's weird, but like Mario cereal or toys, like, it's everywhere.
I'm wearing some Mario underwear right now.
In ways that you wouldn't expect, like, video game things to be crept up. When I was a kid, like, gaming was niche. Yeah. You were made fun of almost for it. It was like no one else did it except for, like, the select few kids that you were cool with. Like, now it's everywhere. There's whole entire stores dedicated to socks and clothes and all this stuff. But anyway, now it's in the medical field. Now it's a thing you can be diagnosed with by your doctor.
Right. So, I mean, and you could always, you could find millions and millions of horror stories of, you know, oh, this person, you know, starved to death playing World of Warcraft and whatever. And, like, yeah, those stories are out there and are true, but the real danger of it is just like the less extreme cases, you know what I mean? Like, your average person with gaming addiction is not going to starve themselves and die
right.
playing World of Warcraft, but they might tank their marriage. They might tank their relationship with their kids.
Yeah.
Like, they might lose their job. Like,
I have seen a marriage fall apart because of gaming addiction.
Yeah, it's like...
Specifically with World of Warcraft,
it's a serious problem. And the thing is, like, addiction is a really interesting conversation. Like, addiction, the more we learn about addiction, the more I'm fascinated by the psychology behind addiction. Like, you have to understand that addiction isn't necessarily... I mean, it is a disorder, but, like, it's really a disorder that's a result of something that's, like, designed to work that way. So our brains are designed to form neural pathways, and when you do behavior that is, like, good for you, you know?
Yeah.
So I mean, you can use, I think, gaming, and there's a lot of parallels between gaming and, like, junk food, in the sense that, like, things like fats and salts and sugars are rare in nature. So when you're on a hunter-gatherer subsistence diet, like, it's going to be rare when you find those things. So, of course, the brain has neural pathways in it to go, like, oh, that was good, you did that good thing, like, and make you feel good for eating the salt or the fat or the sugar. What we've done with junk food is we've taken the salt and fat and sugar and put it into the form of this easily packageable potato chips.
We've processed it and optimized it and extracted it.
And then completely hijacked the brain's dopamine pathways, forming this addiction. You know, junk food's a huge one, but, like, it's anything and everything can be addictive. Like, I mean, yes, there's the obvious ones, drugs, which legitimately form, you know, chemical pathways in your brain, but alcohol, nicotine, like, yes, all those substances can be and are addictive, but, like, you can be addicted to shopping, you can be addicted to working, you can be addicted to, like, sex and stuff like that. Like, all of these things, which in moderation are good, and that your brain is supposed to, like, oh yeah, like,
hey, I'm doing
reward
this.
you, you know, it's a dopamine rush, but those things can become, like, again, the whole science behind addiction is, like, those things, when you do them, and because of our culture that makes those things so readily available, if you do it over and over and over again, your brain becomes dependent on that dopamine rush, because you're supposed to, like, that's how your brain's supposed to work. So video games can do that too. Video games are, like, can be junk food for the mind, you know, it's these bright colors that make you, you know, that are designed to trigger those dopamine rushes in your brain. And again, it's working the way it's supposed to, but it's because it's not moderated, you know, because the user is not moderating it.
Right.
But everyone's, like, I've said it before, like, everyone has a predisposition to some kind of addiction, I think. But it's just different addictions for each person. So you might not ever run across the thing that you could potentially be addicted to, but I think that video games are, you know, they're designed to be addictive because the developers want you to pay money. And unfortunately, there are lots of people out there who have the type of personality that is predisposed to becoming addicted to video games.
Right. There are people who are in less privileged situations that are more of, like, rely on those things to become addicted to. And so we can have, from a privileged standpoint, discipline or self-control, or, like, the structure in our life, the stability of a sound parent marriage, or, like, the stability of a school system, of being consistent in life, and, like, having a family with some money that, like, provided for us comfortably, and, like, we didn't have to do those things that, you know, this stuff that causes the dopamine rush, the reward systems, everything kind of came naturally with the proper context. And then, like, as sovereign adults, sovereign of ourselves, we can limit the effects of addiction just by our own discipline. And like,
and I think you have hit on the fact that, like, anyone can become addicted to something, but there are also people who are more predisposed to it. So there's plenty of people who can drink, you know, gallons of alcohol every week and then never become addicted because they're not alcoholics. Like, they're just not predisposed. That's not their vice. You know, they're not predisposed to being alcoholics genetically or whatever. Like, and they can stop for as long as they want, however they want. I think that's very true with video games too. There's just some people out there who could play 40 hours of video games a week, and then, like, whenever they want, to be like, okay, I'm gonna stop playing. Like, I don't want to.
Just go on to something else.
Yeah. Some people, I think, are more predisposed to, like, needing that, and they could have perfectly fine lives. They could have perfectly, you know, grew up in perfectly stable families and have perfectly be happy with their job, but then just find that one thing that just, like,
wrecks everything.
That just wrecks it because they just get addicted to it. Like, and, you know, it has nothing to do with their circumstances. It has everything to do with just how their brains work. And so I think it's when we're talking about addiction and we're talking about the dark side of gaming, the pitfalls of gaming, if you will, I think we all have to be I think this is probably one of the biggest personal dangers, is just being very keyed into, like, how much do I need this? Right. I think you listed off. Do you want to read some of the...
Yeah, I was actually going to start with the definition that WebMD gave of what gaming addiction is.
Yeah.
The person needs more and more of a substance or behavior to keep him going.
Yep.
If the person does not get more of the substance or behavior, he becomes irritable and miserable.
Yep.
The person is trying to change the way they feel by taking something outside of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
The virtual life becomes more appealing than real life. So that's one of the biggest pitfalls.
Mm-hmm.
So warning signs, according to the Center for Online Addiction, are playing for increased amounts of time, thinking about gaming during other activities, gaming to escape from real-life problems, anxiety, or depression, lying to friends and family to conceal gaming, and feeling irritable when trying to cut down on gaming.
Mm-hmm.
And those are almost like verbatim alcoholics, drug abusers, like those. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing. And so I think that, if we were to encourage people, it'd be just like, be careful of those tendencies. Speaking for myself, I can say that there have been times that I have been addicted to specific games.
Mm-hmm.
I've had the World of Warcraft addiction. I've had the Diablo addiction. For me, I think this is more of a personality thing. Like, I think there's always a backdoor for the addictive tendencies for me, and that is I eventually just get sick of games.
You're just done.
I can like the expansion for World of Warcraft is coming out in the end of the summer, and I will probably the addictive tendencies will start to leak out a bit, and I'll be like, I play World of Warcraft, but I guarantee you after about 2 months I'll get sick of it and be like, okay, I'm done. Like, I don't want to have anything to do with this game.
Is your anticipation of a new game and scheduling ahead of time and arranging stuff really addiction?
It doesn't. No,
because that sounds to me just like a responsible, I'm going to do this. This is something I love, and it can be applied to anything, like a ski trip. I'm going to go with my buddies. We're going to go skiing, and it's going to take 3 days away from my family.
Yeah,
no one cares. Like, okay, great, go do that.
Right,
and
but I have
awesome.
done.
But if you spend 3 days in a basement playing a video game, sometimes people don't like that. But if you plan ahead and schedule it, you're not falling into addiction.
Sure. I mean, I have in the past, though, where I've lost sleep because I've stayed up into the raid. I stayed up to raid because I've wanted that dopamine. I've just wanted the rush. Mm-hmm. Or I feel like, and WoW will actually come into play more with one of our other points, but again.
A lot of the articles and research I was doing were quoting, the online RPGs. Mm-hmm. But I also think, and I don't know if it's just the ignorance of the non-gamers trying to analyze gaming culture, no one talks about MOBAs, like League of Legends and Dota. Yeah. And no one talks about, first-person shooting, like the Call of Duty and
those
the Battlefields.
Are super dopamine,
and, Destiny and, those games, too. Those are kind of more of the games as a service. Mm-hmm. I would lump all of those genres into games as a service. Because you're constantly playing them, they constantly update them and change them. And also, the last thing I wanted to talk about was they all talk about kids and parents. No one's talking about the 30 to 50-year-old men who have grown up playing games, who still play games today. And so all this stuff, all these studies, all the vitriol, all the arguments are all about how parents are raising their children and what effect it has on kids. Yeah. Now, maybe it's because it's their formative years and it kind of sets foundations and tones for how they're going to be as adults. But these 30 to 50-year-olds have already done that, and maybe... we should be talking about the guys our age.
And it would be interesting for people to do long-term studies and see, okay, well, what are the long-term effects of playing video games for 20, 30 years, and that's, there were no long-term studies because it used to only be kids who were playing video games, but now those kids have grown up, and now those kids have had, the aforementioned 20 or 30 years. Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting even more to see when our generation are seniors and we've spent 50 years playing video games. What are the long-term effects? How does addiction come into play?
And I think that's still new to us because people haven't had the chance to check us out yet.
Right.
The people who are doing these studies were the ones that were playing game. Maybe not yet.
And I don't think that they're going to be any really worse effects than any other form of entertainment, to be completely honest.
Yeah,
you can get addicted to movies, you can get addicted to binging Netflix, like that, and those have negative consequences on behavior and stuff too. So I don't think it's gonna be this it's gonna be awful. Smartphone addiction is another thing, Facebook, all of those things you can become addicted. Yeah, exactly. So
speaking of negative aspects of that with kids, they were talking about the socialization of them. So like they're playing their video games and they're not becoming socialized.
Right.
And so they don't know how to talk to girls. So that affects relationships. That affects the family life ultimately, right? Because girls, marriage, kids, procreation, like all of that's affected. They don't know how to play sports. So they don't know how to interact in a competitive etiquette. They don't know how to like know what sportsmanship really looks like, which also feeds into the next topic. That's a good segue for you.
Yeah, let's segue right into it. Yeah, so the next thing we want to talk about is toxic behavior, and I think this is the one. I mean, we could do a whole podcast on any individual one of these. Yeah, exactly.
But we're like 40 minutes in, and
exactly.
We've only covered one of our three.
I think that it's good to do a high level talk about it, and toxic behavior is something that affects all of us. Whereas, addiction affects the person who's addicted and the people immediately around them. And yeah, it may have some long-term effects on those things you were talking about, like family units and stuff like that. But like when you're talking about toxicity, you're talking about like this is the Gamergate stuff that we brought up, a couple episodes ago. Yep. And this is the stuff where it's like these, this is causing people to go away from the gaming culture and to like not respect the gaming culture as a form of entertainment or as a form of art, because you have these players who just get on there and trash everybody. And
let me read this paragraph from this New York Times article.
Yeah.
Listen to the voice communications of almost any popular online first-person shooter game, and you will hear players constantly using racial and homophobic slurs. Make a mistake in just about any team-based combat game, and it won't be long before one of your teammates chastises you with some vile epithet. There is more than one community where Jew is used as a verb, meaning to make money. In many games, women who speak up in voice communications are routinely mocked and harassed.
Yeah.
So there you have every aspect of horrible human beingness met. Racism, sexism.
Right. And there's another really good article from Crack that we're going to link off to. It was one of my favorite writers on the internet right now. His name is David Wong. If we can ever convince him to come and talk on the podcast, then I'll be thrilled.
Yeah.
But he wrote a really recent article like last week that was, talking about how violent video games may be screwing with your brain and not the ways you think. And yeah, he says, pardon my French, but he says video games aren't making us violent, but they are making us assholes. Like, they are making us jerks. Like, and I'm not saying, again, a lot of this is, especially, with the addiction, toxic behavior, like, these are vices, I think, that, again, depending on your personality, you might not be susceptible to. And this one is the most foreign to the both of us, I think. Like, I think that both of us have engaged in toxic behavior in games before, but I don't think that we have done it nearly as frequently as the average toxic player. And furthermore, I don't think either of us engaged in that kind of behavior and haven't in the past like 5 or 6 years. But I've been affected by it. I've been the person on the receiving end of like
receiving it easy.
And I always want to just be, I want to be, a prejudice and say some kid.
Right.
Because that's the stereotype, but it's not just kids. It's grown men who sit there, and grown men and even some grown women. I've been on the receiving end of some girl online just like, you suck and you're awful and you need to learn how to tank and blah, 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 like in a video game. Like, and just like, it can be such a turnoff to wanting to play I used to love playing multiplayer games online. I used to love getting in raids in World of Warcraft and pick up groups and stuff like that, and now I don't. I legitimately don't.
If you're not spot on and perfect in your role, you will be chewed up and spit out and destroyed.
Right? Yeah, and it's so disappointing. But in the article, he talks about, like, I think this is really poignant. I think that he says that, like, the reason why video games are turning us into bad people, and I say us, very loosely, but, the reason why video games turn us into bad people is because what video games, especially violent video games, they're not like puzzle-solving games. They're not like, you're not trying to cognitively work through a problem, and try to see the pieces and how they fit together. Like, that's, more puzzle-solving games. What violent video games teach you, especially like first-person shooters, fast-paced first-person shooters, even MOBAs, I would say, fall into this category where they teach you how to get rid of obstacles quickly. Like, there's an obstacle in your path, and you find the most quick, efficient way based on, again, your skill to get rid of that.
Yeah.
That then begins to translate into real life behavior in the ways that, like, okay, well, there's this person online saying something that you disagree with, and therefore it's an obstacle to your well-being. the easiest way to get rid of that person is to have them shut down their Twitter account. How do you get them to shut down their Twitter account? Well, you harass them online.
Yep.
And just do whatever is necessary to remove that obstacle. And so whatever, like, aggressive or toxic behavior you need to do, like, you're trained by video games to do that, by these violent video games to do that.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really, like, I thought that was spot on. Like, yeah, they're not making us, because again, there's a huge difference. I mean, he even says in the article, there's a huge difference. He said, I have fired an AR-15 before in video games and in real life.
Yeah. The
experience is completely different.
Yeah, not even close.
Video games aren't training us to shoot people because the feeling of shooting a person in a video game is completely different from the feeling of shooting anything in real life. Like, I have fired guns before too, and it's like, the smell is different, the feel is different, the way you actually use the thing
violence
is so different.
of, like, shooting. Just the gunpowder going off and the bullet shell going
loud. Yeah,
it's loud. It's violent. It hits you with a kick really hard. It's loud. It destroys whatever you're pointing at.
And the
like,
average
I'd go
gamer,
skeet shooting, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
Skeet shooting is not duck hunt. Like, they are vastly different. A flash on the screen and a little clay disc disappearing is nowhere near as fun as the real thing. But also, like I said, it's violent, loud. It kicks you really, really hard, and it takes more skill and dexterity to continuously, like, shoot these clay discs and then being able to react and move, and it requires your whole body, and it's not just some twitch reaction on your thumbs. Like, you got to stand a certain way,
right?
Otherwise the gun will, you'll shoot far left and you'll miss. But then, like, the destruction of whatever you hit, so like there's skeet shooting in front of a tree. If you miss, you hit the tree, you see like pieces of the tree go, and you're like, wow, it's almost scary. Like, there's almost like an unnervingness to this.
Right.
I would like, I physically cannot point a gun at a person.
Right.
Like, there's gun safety about, like, pointing it down, pointing it up, never pointing it at people. And sometimes when you're, like, loading or reloading or doing something and there's some people in the area, like, people are just kind of mindless and not really intentional, and they'll, like, accidentally kind of point a gun at a person. I'm, like, extreme opposite. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want this barrel to come anywhere near anyone ever. Like, I don't even have a gun. I probably shouldn't say that for home defense, 'cause, like, I would not be able to eliminate. Like,
right. Yeah.
It would be so hard.
So the point is that it's just like what they do train us for, though, is like what you can get out of a video game is then, gamifying things in your real life becomes really easy. So, and that can be a good thing. Like, I think about you training for your marathon.
Oh,
Like having what video games teach you to do is to eliminate those obstacles in your path. Those, okay, well, I need to lose weight, so I'm gonna
fat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I need to lose weight so that I can increase my running time. Like, I'm going to take steps to eliminate that obstacle and remove food, increase exercise, whatever you need to do. And those are ways in which, like, that kind of training can be good, but it can also train people to trigger the libs on Facebook or whatever, and just engage in this sort of toxic behavior in their real life because they see it as just a simple obstacle, and they can check off that box when they.
Yeah, like, I went on Reddit one day. I was actively looking for some legit resources for a topic for the show, and I was thinking, okay, a lot of people say that certain video games are developed for PC or they're developed for a console and then ported, and those ports are somehow less quality, or like they don't matter as much, and whatever it's actually developed for matters more. But there's no real concrete evidence for this. Yeah. So I went on Reddit and I was like, hey people, where do you get this information from? I was downvoted, ripped apart, and destroyed. Like, I was a complete moron and idiot for even asking this question.
Yeah, because again, they saw it as for whatever reason, they saw it as an attack
on the PC versus console thing.
Yeah, whatever their particular viewpoint was, and then that attack on them is an obstacle, and so they eliminated that obstacle.
It's and the way that you do it on the internet when you're hiding behind a keyboard and not in front of someone is to just come up with the farthest hyperbolic antithesis response you can come up with and throw it at them.
Right. So, I mean, we don't always want to sit here and whine about toxic behavior. Like, we get it. Like, we're trying to say that we understand. We do think it's a problem, though, because we think that, again, like it's not fair to the growing female population of gamers. Like, we talked in another episode as to why it's
with
good.
Kristen even.
That, I mean, we talked even without Kristen. We talked about strong female protagonists. We thought why it's good that more women are playing video games. Why do you feel like you have to attack? Why do you feel like it's an attack on you? Like, and then have to eliminate that obstacle and get those girls out of my games? Like, no, it's like, and then, like, again, we talked in our first episode about how we think that video games are a form of art, but the biggest danger to the legitimacy of that is this toxic culture of gaming, because people are only ever going to see video games as a thing for children if gamers continue to act like children.
Yeah.
Like petulant children.
Yep.
Like, no, we need to be better.
Yes.
We need to be better. And so
what does being better look like?
Yes.
Really quick. Like I was just thinking of like Destiny 2 came out. It's kind of a modern thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
What does being better that look like? I'm going to get on and help my friends. Mm-hmm. Okay, this person's not good, right? He's in your group and he's slowing the whole group down. You're kind of like, man, I've only got 2 hours to play tonight and this guy is like wasting an hour. What can you do to be better?
Right. I mean, yeah, it's about not taking games as seriously. Like, everyone just needs to sort of take a step back and not take games so seriously. Like, if you legitimately want to compete, then you need to find the group of people that are, like, hardcore about it, and you guys need to practice and train together, whatever. Like, but if you're just the average gamer, like, then be happy, content with being average.
I would personally just passive aggressively, like, be like, hey, guys, this has been fun. I'm out. And I would just leave the group. And then go find another group that's better. I would never like attack someone for not being good. Like,
right.
I wouldn't ruin that person's. They're a person. They have feelings, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like that's how I would approach it. I don't know if that's the right way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly,
lifting others up and like joining groups to help. Is also
just
another way of doing it.
Adhering. I know it's a simple concept and almost juvenile, but that's the thing. Is like sometimes you need juvenile concepts to address juvenile behavior. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. Yeah. And I hate the word nice, so I'll avoid that. And just say, legitimately, if you don't have anything kind to say to someone, then just, like, lean towards muting your mic. And if you need to rage at your stuffed animals or your dog or whatever, like, take it out on the inanimate objects. Like,
helping players goes a long way, too.
Right, exactly.
Especially new players.
Yeah, like, because that's the thing. If someone who's new to a game, especially in a multiplayer online game, like, they want to learn, they want to get better because they want to have a good time.
Yep.
Nobody wants to be bad at a game.
Yeah.
So if they're bad, like, try to help them be better. Like, point them to resources that helped you. If, if you're playing World of Warcraft and you know where to get on Icy Veins and find the best DPS rotation, like, then, like, link them. Be like, hey, this was helpful for me. Like, don't be a jerk about it. Like, you need to read this right now. No, just be like,
I've had people do that to me. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's
great.
great.
Icy Vein was a thing until I sucked at tanking. And they were like, hey, go here, check this out, and build your character like it, and try it.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, thank you.
Right, yeah. So, I do want to hit one, we do have one more kind of major pitfall of gaming that we want to hit. So, I would love to revisit the idea of toxic behavior and ways that we can address it as a culture. But, let's talk about one more thing, and that is and bringing up World of Warcraft, I think, was poignant because games can really provide you with a false sense of accomplishment.
Yeah. Why is it false? I feel very accomplished in my gaming. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, games are entertainment. They're not designed. They're designed to really help you waste time. Mm-hmm. Like, and again, they're designed with bright lights and stuff to give you a dopamine rush. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, most games are also designed to make you feel like you've accomplished something. Like, you want to get either at the very least you want to beat the game.
Right.
You may be going after trophies. You want to get that platinum. World of Warcraft, you want to get the best gear and do the raids or get achievements and collect mounts and all that stuff. Unfortunately, and this one, I would say of all three of these, between toxic behavior, addiction, and false sense of accomplishment, I would say this is probably my biggest vice. And this is probably my personal biggest pitfall with gaming. Mm-hmm. And that is, like, you're not really doing anything. Again, they're entertainment. The point of entertainment is to amuse you. And I use that word in its strictest definition. The word amuse, muses thought, and is... To remove it. Without it? Yes. Yeah. To remove thought. Mm-hmm. You don't really accomplish anything. I mean, it's fun to say I've got 4 platinums, but 4 platinums isn't going to put food on your table.
Nope.
4 platinums isn't gonna win you a Nobel Prize. You know what I mean? Like 4 platinums isn't gonna give you any kind of prestige. Isn't gonna give you any kind of honor. Isn't gonna give you any kind of income, really. Mm-hmm. Unless you're like the top of the line esports gamer, which if you are, all power to you. This does not apply to you. Like you make that advertisement money and you live the dream. Like so, for those of you who actually are esports gamers and like accomplishing those things, like more power to you. We are in full support of you. How many of you listeners are actually going to make money playing video games? Probably none of you. Like,
we have the potential to with our podcast.
Yes, yeah, but that's the thing. Like, our podcast, I'm so glad we started this podcast because this actually gives me a sense of accomplishment.
A real accomplishment.
Like, I can say I have published 30.
This is episode 34.
4 episodes of a podcast discussing video games. And yes, the content may be relatively shallow and, entertainment based, but it's still something that we've created, something that we've done. It's required work and effort and sacrifice. Like, video games don't require those things at all.
No, you just pick up a controller, turn it on, and go in. That's it.
Yes, they require some thought, but like you're still essentially just kind of turning your brain off, and most of the time it's meant to be leisurely and relaxing.
Yeah.
Even if, you're jumping off a building and throwing an axe at, 5 demons and then, catching it and landing with a flourish.
And the reason why this is even a pitfall, I think, is because those things have value in the gaming world.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And when you confuse that value with your ultimate value or something outside of light or outside of the game in real life, then it becomes an issue.
Yeah,
and so,
absolutely.
Sure, my 11 platinums don't matter to anyone who's not in the PlayStation world, but if some Podsmasher decides to look up my credibility as a gamer and they're like, hey, he's got no platinums, 200 trophies, he's not even level 3. Like, all of a sudden my credibility as a podcaster is kind of like, so that highlights 2 points. 1, the platinums have value in the gaming world, and 2, this podcast is the real life accomplishment. So without the podcast and I was just a Joe Blow gamer, right? What would my 11 platinums mean? Maybe that I'm a serious gamer, that I kind of know what I'm talking about. I would be accepted into parties or so, or as in groups to play a game together with strangers. Like they would look at me and look at my profile and see that this guy he means what he says. He's not just some new dude.
Right, but the value goes up because you're actually doing something else with the
real life value. Yeah. The inherent value within the game with World of Warcraft. You have this fancy mount, you're flying around on a dragon that
showing it off.
Right, you're showing it off to the players in that realm that see you, that don't know who you are. They're either going to cast judgment that you have no life, or they're going to be like, that dude knows World of Warcraft, and he's obviously put some time in.
Right.
And so that's confusing those two things is where we run into issues.
Yeah, I mean, but the biggest way that this particular thing has been a pitfall for me is there have been times where I've carved out time in my life to work on my novel, for example, something I actually want to accomplish in my life.
You talk about that a lot.
Publish. I do. I legitimately want to write and be a good writer. I just can't. But a big pitfall for me has been there have been certain times in my life where I've gotten a groove that's been demolished by a game release. A game has come out and it's been okay, nope, now I want to play this game. And then my writing habits, even if I've worked really hard to get good habits, they all go out the window.
Yep.
And it's because I can feel accomplished playing a game. I can get that immediate gratification out of the game, and then my the good habits I've built trying to actually accomplish something else go out the window. So for me, it's not affecting my job. It's not necessarily affecting my I'm not quitting my job to play video games or anything that extreme, but it's the smaller goals. It's the sort of things that long-term things I'd like to do with my life. Video games have and can be a huge detractor from that for me, because but Netflix can too. So it's not a problem that's unique to video games. It's not if I cut video games out of my life, I would suddenly accomplish.
So going to the bar with your friends,
right? Yeah, exactly.
Or staying up all night, or whatever you're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Out there in the world,
I would probably primarily just replace my video game habits with watching Netflix. So it's again, it's not a problem that's unique to video games, but again, they are huge.
Yeah.
And I have seen it happen where it's a big release has come out and it's completely demolished what I'm trying to do. Yeah. So yeah.
It's anticipating those releases and scheduling the time appropriately.
Right. Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. No, there are ways. Getting me to actually put that into practice is a whole different story.
When BioWare's Anthem comes out and me and Matt Calhoun are going to have a 2-night LAN party, that's what we're going to schedule that out.
Or Smash Bros.
Yes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, talking about all these things, talking about the high, what is a good, I think you kind of hit on it. There are some circumstances in which anytime everybody wastes time doing something, that's what I've kind of come to, everybody wastes time and money on something. I knew a kid
in a privileged society of a first world country.
Sure.
We have the extra resources to devote to things like kayaking,
I say hyperbolically,
mountain climbing, or video gaming, or motorcycling, or I see what you're saying.
Yeah. No, it's just I had a friend who's or not a friend, but a dude I used to work with who bought a Corvette.
Yeah.
Kid had no education, didn't he graduated high school and that's about it. He went to high school, And then he spent his entire life working at this grocery store and saved up and bought a Corvette.
Dang.
Like, that's what he did with his money. I'm like, I feel less bad about my video game purchases, you know?
Thank you for validating me.
Right? Yeah. So, I mean, that's just to say, like, my wife and I, not to get too super into the way we structure our finances, but one of the ways that we manage our personal expenses so that we don't, engage in conflict as a result of them is, like, we have allowances. So, like, in the sense that every time, the paycheck comes in, like, we each get X amount of money per month that we can spend, kind of no questions asked, obviously within the boundaries of I can't go blow it on coke and whores.
Right.
But like,
why not?
But again, if I want to save up my allowance and purchase a PlayStation 4 and a video game and a controller, like she can't like criticize that. Mm-hmm. In the same way, my wife buys like $80 worth of shoes.
What?
Cool. Like, enjoy your shoes. Like, even if I might find that as like a waste, like, why would you spend that much money? I have a hard time spending $20 on shoes, like, but again, like, that's what I mean. Everybody kind of wastes money on something, and I think that applies to time too. Like, everyone kind of wastes time on something as well.
Yeah, if you don't have money, I guess you're going to spend your time on something.
Yeah, so, and some people have more free time than others, and for those who are, like, filling up so it's okay to, feel accomplished in the way you waste your time. So, like, I think that at the end of the day, it's not a huge problem. But if it is affecting other goals you have, then I think it can be a problem. So, just again, with all these things, we're just trying to like bring them into discussion so that we ourselves can pay attention to them, but also hopefully our listeners, especially the ones who play video games regularly, like can identify those things. Yeah, and
I don't know if it's from good upbringing or whatnot, but I've always had the mentality that gaming is a fun, frivolous thing that you only do when you have the time to do it. Mm-hmm. And that school was more important, and that working was more important, and that family was more important. Mm-hmm. And so before I was married, as I was going through school, like my grades were always good. I went to college. I worked at a part-time job at Starbucks. While going to college, I went to school. I hung out with friends. Like, gaming always took that back burner, but it was my main hobby as to what I did whenever I had the free time. And then leading it into marriage, it's like I only played games whenever my wife was busy to make sure I prioritized her over games. And even now with a kid, it's like it takes even more of a back burn, like with marathon running. So now I run, and I think that takes up 8 to 10 hours a week of my life. And I find how to navigate that and fit it into stuff, because even that's frivolous in some degree. I mean, I would say it's more important because your physical fitness aspect. I digress on that whole deal. But like, I don't leave work early and lie, cheat, and steal to try and figure out how to get more game time, or manipulate everything in my world to try and get more game time. Like, it's always been in its proper
hierarchy.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Well, like, tell us your thoughts, guys. We really would love to engage in conversation about this. Like, what do you think there are more pitfalls than just the 3 we mentioned? Do you disagree with any of the points we brought up, or do you think that there is some merit into what people say about violent tendencies in video games? Whatever you guys want to talk about, just talk to us about what do you think the dark side of gaming is? What do you think the pitfalls are? Maybe there isn't. Maybe gaming is perfect.
Right. If you think that we fall into one of these categories and want to call us out, do it.
We'd be happy to hear your feedback.
If you fall into one of these categories and want to talk to us about your struggle, we would love to dive in and have that conversation.
Yeah, we won't make it. We will keep it as anonymous as you would like it. And if you just want to, we will make ourselves available to kind of talk through any of those things. We're not professionals, so we're not touting ourselves as some.
Nope.
But
we just know gaming.
But we just know gaming, and we're dudes, and we care about people. So we'd love to hear your thoughts. And again, if you really want to talk to us about your struggles, we would be happy to listen. So that is all we have for the day. We have 4 footnotes. We've got the WebMD, video game addiction. We've got the GameSpot article that talks about the World Health Organization's recent categorization of gaming disorder. We have the Cracked article about violent video games, how they screw with your brain.
Most of these are relevant too. They're new. I'm sorry.
Very recent resources. And then a 2018 New York Times article about the real problem with video games is toxicity, not violence. So read those resources. They're really great. This is a really good conversation to have. So we want you to talk about it with your friends and just kind of, begin the conversation, because that's where change starts and that's where improvement begins. So.
And if you want to know where you can find us, you can find us on Reddit, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at 80-bit Podsmash. It's all lowercase, no hyphens, no uppercase stuff. Easy to find.
And if you would like us to be on a social media that you prefer, then let us know and we'll figure it out.
Yes, we will.
Cool. Well, thanks guys for listening to us, and have a great week.